I don't know why, but there is ladybirds everywhere here. Hello everyone, I'm going to make this really quick because my battery is actually about to die. But when I originally filmed this video, I was going to do 2 parts but put them both in the same video. However, upon editing said video, I just think it's going to be way too long to do as one video, so I decided I'm going to post the 2 parts separately. So this part is going to be me talking about the books that I have already read, and then the next video my battery ended up dying and this one that I've put in is also kind of low, so again I'm going to try to keep this quick. But this video I'm going to talk about the books I read specifically for the video that I filmed, and then the next video will be me talking about the books that I've just already read in the past that are really popular books that I just read because I wanted to read them. So yeah. Hi guys, welcome back. Today I'm going to be talking about popular books and whether or not I think they're worth the hype. So I've basically just taken books that are spoken about either on BookTube, Bookstagram, BookTok, any social media platform, and some of these are just ones that I see people talking about a lot, and some of these were books that I kind of wanted to read anyway, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to read these for this video. So this is what we're going to be drinking whilst I'm filming. I have a nice refreshing ice cold drink. It is very hot today. It is, okay, it's 26 right now, but it feels like a lot hotter than that, and it's quite stuffy in here. So I've got my little fan on me, so apologies if you can hear that, but I'm using my little fan rather than the proper fan just because the proper fan makes a lot of noise. It would definitely be, one, distracting and annoying, but also I don't know if you'd even be able to hear me properly. So we're gonna hop right into it. I do want to open my drink, but I don't know if it's safe yet because it did fall on the floor a minute ago, so I think I might wait a minute. But the first book I'm going to talk about is 1,000 Boy Kisses. If you see me looking to the left, it's just because I have my Notion up on here, which has all my notes and everything on. I tend to ramble a lot and just end up yapping about stuff, so I've tried to write everything I want to say out in bullet points just so I don't go off on too much of a tangent. But the first book, 1,000 Boy Kisses. This book follows Poppy and Rune, who are childhood best friends, but they haven't spoken since Rune moved back to Norway 2 years prior to when the book starts. When he returns to Georgia, he is determined to get an explanation of why Poppy cut him off. This book was the first book that I started reading, and it did put me in a bit of a reading rut. I started it before and I was so bored I don't think I even got 20 pages in. So I decided to just put it down and then go back to it. And then I ended up going back to it in January, and I got up to about halfway. And this is when I kind of just decided that the book isn't for me. So upon the second time of attempting to read this book, it just made me feel quite slumpy when it came to reading. I didn't really want to pick it up. When I was actively reading it, I was enjoying it, and there were a few times where I was invested in the story. Didn't love it. I kind of want to skip to the end, see what happened, and put everything together and read the last 50 pages or something, because I just don't feel like it's worth me actually sitting down and reading it. And usually there's been multiple times where books that I have enjoyed, it's either taken me a while to get through them, or I have had to put it down for a bit and go back to it. Like As Good as Dead by Holly Jackson, I did read 125 pages, but I just wasn't really feeling it, so I put it down. But then when I picked it up and read it properly the next time, I rated it 5 stars. So the fact that I didn't get very far the first time isn't a major red flag to me. I just was like, I'm not in the mood for it. Whereas the second time I picked this up, I wanted an emotional book. I wanted to get invested in a story, and I just wasn't really. Now, I might be wrong about what I think is gonna happen, and I might be judging it poorly and just making assumptions. However, I don't really care if my assumption's wrong. Like, I think I know what's gonna happen, like, roughly, but I don't care whether to actually read it and see if that's what happens, if that makes sense. There's so many times where I'll read a book and I'm like, okay, I think this is gonna happen, and sometimes it does happen, but I still want to actually find out if it does and how it happens, if that makes sense. Whereas I didn't feel like that for this. I did feel like it was going to be quite predictable, and so I just kind of lost interest in it. And I also just, I don't know, it felt quite young adult, not even young adult, but it felt quite teen. I do think it is aimed at teenagers, and I'm 22, so I'm not a teenager anymore. And I do still read YA, but sometimes YA feels too young for me. But sometimes, like, there's an author that I really liked when I was a teenager called Emery Lord, and I have a couple of her books that I still want to read. And I don't think it would bother me that they're teenagers in the book, because I'm going to have, like, the nostalgia of how I felt reading her other books when I was a teen, if that makes sense. Whereas I didn't have this because I've never read a Tilly Cole book before. I just ended up not really loving this. I do want to know what happens, but I don't want to know enough to actually go and, like, carry on the book, if that makes sense. So in my opinion, this book is not worth the hype. And like I said, little disclaimer, just because I don't think it's worth the hype doesn't mean that you shouldn't read it. It just means it wasn't for me, and I personally think it's overhyped. On to the next book, and I'm so excited to talk about this one, and that is Powerless by Elsie Silver. This is the third book in the Chestnut Springs series, and it is a contemporary / sports romance. It does say on Goodreads it categorises it as a sports romance. The male main character is an ice hockey player. I'm pretty sure it's ice hockey anyway. And it is very much like a small town contemporary romance with a massive, like, found family trope within the whole series in general. But also with this book as well, I wouldn't say it's massively sports romance, but it does, like, play an element in it, if that makes sense. So this book follows Jasper and Sloane, and it starts with Jasper helping Sloane run away on the morning of her wedding, and then Sloane ends up going on a road trip with Jasper very unexpectedly, and it's a childhood friends to lovers, except she's been in love with him since, like, she was a teenager and he friend-zoned her. Yeah, very, very, very interesting. I really love this series. Like I said, this has a really big, like, found family trope, and this is definitely something that I feel is in all of the books in the series, but this one specifically. I also feel like this was probably the most emotional, at least for me, in the series. I love a good backstory, and you really get that with Jasper. Jasper Gervais is, I want to say, my favourite. I also loved Cade, but Jasper Gervais is like, I don't know, I think they're my joint two favourites. But then obviously I've only read the first three, so it's like there's only 3 so far. I've been trying to kind of, like, not binge this series because I really love it so much. I don't want to just go straight in and out of the world, if that makes sense. I did start the first one about a year ago now, I think it was, so I definitely do want to, like, read the next one really badly, but, like, I also don't want to leave these characters behind, if that makes sense. But yeah, in my opinion, this book is definitely worth the hype. And then next up we have The Silent Patient. I wasn't really planning on reading this. I'd seen people talk about it. I feel like this is one of the most popular books on the internet, at least, like, on social media. I have seen people talk about this. It's been in, like, every thriller books recommendations that I've watched for years, and I was kind of just like, yeah, it sounds interesting, but like I never really thought, okay, I really need to read that. And then when I was doing some little research for this video, I was like, actually, do you know, I think I do want to read it. I'm definitely more into thrillers now than I was when this book first started getting hyped up. The Silent Patient is a thriller about a talented artist who killed her husband and has been mute ever since. She has lived in a psych ward since that happened. A lot of people speculated that she went mute so that she'd get the insanity plea and then wouldn't end up in prison, but there's this one criminal psychotherapist who starts working in that psych ward, and he is determined. He is sure, he's not even determined, he is like, I can make her talk. I'm the one person who can make her talk. This is a dual point of view book, which is also really interesting because you get the POV of the artist. Her name's Alicia, and you get her point of view of her life leading up to and including when she shot her husband. So yeah, I really enjoyed this. I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would as well, and it was a really good thriller. I was hooked from the beginning. I read this in a few days. I was on holiday at the time that I was reading it, so I was kind of busy, but any like downtime I'd get, I'm like, no, okay, I need to read this book, I need to finish it, because like I needed to know what happened. So I would say that this one is also worth the hype, which was a surprise to me. I kind of felt like I didn't go into it being like, oh, this is overhyped, but before I read it I was just like, is it one of those books that is just going to be overhyped or what? I don't know. I'm not gonna do ratings for these. If I have decided by the time I'm editing this video, then I'll put it on the screen, but some of these books I don't really know what to rate. The next book I'm going to talk about, I actually have the physical copy here, and that is Every Summer After. This book has been on like every summer book recommendations videos and TikToks and stuff that I have seen. It took me a few years to actually want to read it, but I ended up buying this because I wanted a summer romance. So I am excited to talk about this one. Again, I'm gonna read my notes from Notion just so that I don't mess it up, because I've got quite a few things to say about this. But this is a friends to lovers / second chance romance which follows Percy and Sam in the small town of Barry's Bay. This story is told in an alternating timeline where we get to see Percy and Sam meet and the first 6 years of their story. Then we get to the present timeline where Percy goes back to Barry's Bay for the first time in years. I did enjoy this book, however I don't really know what to rate it because it took me quite a while to read. So I read The Silent Patient within a few days and then I started this straight afterwards, and it has taken me about 3 weeks, I'd say, to read this, which is a long time. However, I've been moving and I've been very out of my normal routine because of the move, and so I don't really know what to rate this one because I feel like it's unfair to rate a book on external circumstances, if that makes sense. I know that the move and being out of my routine and stuff has affected the rate at which I read this. I also was really struggling to actually like hold open the book and read it just because it was hurting me more than usual, which is why I prefer to read on my Kindle. But I also do love physical copies. I wasn't obsessed with this, but I was enjoying it whilst I was reading it. But again, I was finding it difficult to physically pick it up and read. So I don't really know what to rate this one because of that, because I think part of it was the book and part of it was external circumstances that aren't the book's fault. So I don't want to rate this badly because of that. However, I'm gonna go based off of the vibes and the setting of this book. This book I enjoyed. If you want a summer romance, like friends to lovers, second chance, set in summer in a lake house, read this. I wasn't expecting them to be as old as they are in the current chapters. I don't know why, I kind of just presumed like because of the picture that they were teenagers. And you do get flashback chapters throughout pretty much the whole book from when they were teenagers, but that's you going back and seeing them meet each other and kind of just like their friendship and everything that happened when they were kids. They weren't really kids, but teens, and everything that led up to when she stopped going back to Barry's Bay. I really did enjoy it, and now that I'm talking about it, I'm just like, I really did enjoy it. I just didn't love it to pieces. Like, it's not my favorite book. So there's a character in here called Charlie, and he is the male main character's brother, and he just got his own book that recently came out, and I like this enough to really want to go and pick that up. So it's called One Golden Summer. It also had such amazing vibes to the book, the setting, the scenery. I would recommend it just off that. So I would say that this is worth the hype. And then the next book I actually just finished yesterday, so I haven't really written much down about it, so if I don't sound very coherent in this, then I'm sorry. That is Problematic Summer Romance by Ali Hazelwood. I feel like most of Ali Hazelwood's books are quite hyped up, and this is her newest release. It took me a while to pick this up. Usually I'll buy Ali Hazelwood's books literally straight away, but this time I didn't, and then it went on 99p on Kindle, so I was just like, I'm getting it. I am getting it. But this follows Maya and Connor, and this is an age gap romance, which isn't something I've really read that much of. I was a little bit skeptical going into it because of that. Not because I think age gap romances are really bad, but just because it's not something I've really read much of, at least that I can think of off the top of my head. But I did enjoy this. This is a slow burn. If you don't like slow burns, you probably won't be the biggest fan of this. I am not a massive slow burn person. I'm just like, no, I'm bored. If this wasn't by Ali Hazelwood, I'm not gonna lie, I probably wouldn't pick it up, because again, slow burn, age gap, it's not something I really tend to read. Yeah, so this is brother's best friend as well. So Maya and Connor have kind of known of each other for a while. So Maya has a brother called Eli, and he is, I think, 15 years older than her, 15 or 16 years older than her, and they have the same parents, but they've kind of lived quite different lives because of that age gap. When she's in college in America, she goes to Edinburgh for, I think it was a year, to do a year abroad, and something happens and they kind of strike up this friendship, and Maya basically has feelings for him, but because of the age gap, he's very much like, no, we can't do this, we're not ever like gonna be together. And then basically this book takes place over the week before Eli's and Rue's wedding. So Eli and Rue, you meet them and follow their story in their book, which is Not in Love. So Problematic Summer Romance is like a sequel to that book, if that makes sense. Problematic Summer Romance follows the week before Eli and Rue's wedding, where they have rented a villa in Italy for a week for their closest friends and family, which includes Maya and Connor. So you've got like a force proximity thing going on. I really enjoyed this. Like I said, it isn't my slow burn isn't my favorite thing, and I would say this is a slow burn. It's not like the slowest of a slow burn, but it is quite slow for what I typically would read. However, I did really enjoy it. Like I said, Ali Hazelwood just has a way of writing that I always enjoy, and I really did enjoy this. I haven't seen an absolute ton of hype on Problematic Summer Romance, but I feel like that's because it hasn't been out that long. I think it's only been a couple months. However, I have still seen it be recommended in a lot of like summer book recommendations and everything, so it is still like relatively popular. Yeah, that's why I decided to put that in this video. And then the last book that I'm going to talk about in this section is Ward D. So I picked this up to read as like to have a Kindle read, because I pretty much only read on my Kindle at night just because it's the easiest, it's the most convenient. So I picked this up to have a Kindle read for before bed, which is kind of funny considering this is a thriller, like not the best thing to read before you go to sleep. However, I really enjoyed this, and this is a fast-paced thriller that follows medical student Amy on an overnight rotation in an inpatient mental health unit. Before she's even started her shift, she's on edge, but the further into the night it gets, more patients and staff are vanishing and weird things are happening. So yeah, I read this within a couple days, and I think it's like 400 pages, 300, 400 pages, so a decent sized book. And I have seen this recommended quite a lot in most thriller recommendations. I mean, in pretty much any thriller recommendation TikTok you see, or post, like, you're probably going to see a Freedom McFadden book in there. Now, I have read quite a few Freedom McFadden books, and this is on my scale of just like, it's not the best of hers, but it's not my least favourite of hers. It's kind of in the middle. Like I said, I read it within a couple days and I binged the last like 150 pages. Like, I needed to know what happened. Like I said, it's very fast paced. If you want a fast paced book, everything's happening like in a short space of time, this is a really good book for that. I did like Amy's character, but I wasn't like, oh my god, this is the best FMC, like I love her. Like, it's not like that, but I feel like that could be hard to feel like that for some thrillers. And I will say it was a little bit predictable, which is why it's not one of my favourite Freedom McFadden books. However, it is still worth the read, and I would say this is worth the hype. Hello everyone, so I didn't actually film an outro for this video because when I filmed it, I originally planned on making one video, but since I've been editing, I've just decided that it would be better to do two separate videos because it's already quite long. So I hope you enjoyed part one, and I will see you guys soon.